All right, folks, welcome to yet another session of Tech Tuesdays. Today we're going to have a session on building templates right from scratch. With us today is Naresh Govindaraj, who runs our entire product management for Informatica Cloud, and he was a brainchild behind the creation of cloud integration templates. So for those of you that were on the call a couple of weeks ago, we had a customer, Intralinks, that showed you what their use case was in building a template and importing it into Informatica Cloud. And we also showed you how you can import some ready-made templates from the Marketplace repository within Informatica Cloud into your own org. Today what we're going to go over is building your template from scratch. So on the agenda today, we're going to once again just have a brief summary over why people would use integration templates. We're then going to go into some advanced integration use cases that would require the use of templates. Then we're going to go over some important transformations that you should know about, and then go straight into the demo on how you would build an integration template from scratch. Then we'll have a summary of learnings, a Q&A session, and obviously the next Tech Tuesday session. So for those of you that are familiar with Informatica Cloud, you're obviously familiar with our simple user interface. It's a 6-step user interface whereby you define your integration task, you select your source and your targets, you perform any sort of data filtering you'd like, you map the fields from source to target, and you can schedule it. But when it comes to advanced integration templates or advanced integration use cases, that's where templates come into handy. And templates are more useful for integration developers as well as architects, whereby you can build complex transformations, yet also build those complex transformations and use them within the easy-to-use Informatica Cloud wizard. And to speak on that further, I'm going to bring in Naresh Govindaraj, who actually built the templates and made sure that you could use the UI within Informatica Cloud.
Thanks, Ashwin. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining. I'd like to spend just a minute on this slide to emphasize what Ashwin just talked about. Informatica Cloud is about making integration easy, and the approach we've taken is to provide wizards on top of common integration scenarios such as data synchronization, replication, etc. So as we look at addressing more complex integration use cases, we have come up with a way for you to express that complex integration and logic as shown below in this diagram. But at the same time, what we want is that we allow a broader set of users to be able to configure the integration through wizards. So even though we are addressing more involved use cases, we have the ability for end users to be able to configure this integration on their own through simple wizards. Okay, so we'll take a look at that through the demo. So what are more advanced integration or what are characteristics of more advanced integrations? So you may have to access more complex applications such as SAP. You may have to join data across heterogeneous applications such as, let's say, a relational database and a Salesforce.com or NetSuite, etc. You may have to process data through multiple steps, which are very custom for what you're trying to solve. You may have to route data to multiple systems or multiple targets. Maybe you want to process error rows differently from the valid rows and write them to different systems. You may have issues with data quality in the data that you're processing, which requires specialized logic to be able to deal with and correct the errors. And you may have other custom logic to deal with how you capture data from different systems in an incremental manner, how you deal with change data capture and so forth. And then there are also more real-time or near real-time types of use cases that you want to address. So a lot of these fall under, I would say, the category of advanced integration. And this is where you would need to build what we call integration templates to address these types of use cases. So Now, what we've done as we introduce integration templates, the key benefit that we've brought in is that access to more transformations that are available in our library. Okay, as you know, a lot of these transformations we borrowed from PowerCenter. So these are transformations that are available in the PowerCenter product, and our integration developers and on-premise have been using these transformations for a long time. So now these transformations can be accessed and leveraged within the cloud. So here's a list of some of these transformations. There are more. The expressions is a very popular transformations to deal with transformation at the field level attributes. The aggregators used to summarize data or build roll-ups on data, and so forth. And we'll look at some of these as we go through the demo. The joiner is a very popular transformations to be able to join across heterogeneous data sources. The filter, again, is very commonly used to be able to filter data based on your own custom logic. The lookups is used for augmenting additional information that you want to bring in from other relational databases and other data sources. Normalizer is very commonly used to be able to pivot information. Java and HTTP transformations gives you more flexibility and also allows you to invoke processing through HTTP calls. And router is used to route data into multiple targets. And sorter is commonly used with the aggregator to sort data before aggregation and so forth. Okay. So at this point, let me walk you through a demo that shows end-to-end how you can build an integration template and get it running within the Informatica Cloud environment. So what you're seeing here is the IDE for building an integration template. So for this release, what we have is a Visio plugin. So if you have Visio, you can install a plugin which is available through our community site. And what you'll see is a stencil that appears, which has all the different transformations that we just talked about. So to build a template, what you need is to bring in the necessary transformations and hook them up to address your custom logic. Okay. There are some videos already out there that show how to build integration templates using the stencil. There are also examples in our online guide that explains how these different transformations are used. Now, for the purpose of this demo, we're going to do things a little bit differently, and also given the fact that we have limited time, what we're going to do is leverage some of the existing templates and best practices already and build a new integration template with that. So let me bring this up. So what we've done is taken some of the common ideas and best practices from different integrations that we've built so far and made this available through a common document. Okay, and you can call these integration fragments or integration stubs, but basically they show you how you can solve different problems with integration. And as a developer, what you can do is access this document and just select the different integrations that are shown here, or integration stubs that are shown here, and bring them into your document and use this as a starting point. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these examples that are here. So the first set of stubs here show how you can access data sources. For example, let's say you want to be able to read from a relational system or a file system. This is what you would typically do. Okay. Let's say you want to be able to read from NetSuite or Salesforce. These are the transformations that are needed. And here are other examples. So let's say you want to be able to do something more complex. Let's say you want to join data between a relational system and a file system. Then you would use these sets of widgets and bring it together. So what these integration fragments have are they pre-wired to solve a specific from, so you can bring it into your document and make some changes, use them as is, or make some necessary changes that you need. So here's another one that joins data between a relational database and an application source such as SAP or NetSuite. So let's take a look at what this has. So as you see here, the data is coming from a relational system. That's one source, and the other source is coming from an application. And to do the join, we use the joiner transformation. And if you see here, the joiner is pre-configured, and here are some of the attributes, such as the join type, for example, is set to do a normal join, which is more like an inner join. And there are a few attributes that are parameterized. Okay, so if you see here, the join condition is parameterized. So what that implies is that the actual condition will be provided through an integration wizard in the cloud. Okay, so this gives you the flexibility to change some of the attributes or some of the integration logic on the fly in the cloud itself. The other thing that you need to be aware is that if you see here, the actual application object or the relational table, etc., are not pre-defined within this integration template itself. So even those values are provided through the wizard. Okay. So let's go further down. So here's another example where you want to join between a file and an application. So again, all of these you can easily bring into your document and use them as a starting point. As you go further into this document, so here are examples of how you would use different transformations, filtering, aggregation, etc. In your template. So for example, the expression transformation is very commonly used to be able to transform your attributes. So let's say you want to apply string transformations or any type of data type transformations or encryption functions, etc. Then you would use this particular transformation in your template. So here are some other examples, right? So let's say you want to convert dates from one format to the other. So this is pre-configured to do a lot of the date conversions. The trim strings is pre-configured to trim all the strings within your particular data. So let's take a look at what this might look like. So if you see here, this particular transformation has been encoded to do an L trim and R trim. So basically, it trims all the spaces, the leading and trailing spaces for all the fields that come through this particular transformation. Okay. So as you go here, go further down, there are other examples of how you can aggregate your data, do roll-ups, etc. for any incoming data, and so forth. You can pivot your information. So if you have data coming in as rows, you may want to pivot as columns and so forth. So a lot of these best practices have been pre-configured through these fragments and are made available here. Another popular transformation is a filter, which is often used to filter records based on a user-defined condition. There are also stubs here that show how to route data to different transformations. So you may have a routing logic to be able to divert data to different targets. The joiner is used to join data across systems. A union transformation acts more like a database union function. And here are the examples of how you may want to augment data like using lookups to be able to bring in product data or customer data so that you can augment that to your integration flow. And then there are other examples here that show how to write to different targets, right? So if you want to write to a database or the file system, if you want to write to an application such as Salesforce, or if you want to be able to write and append to a particular file target. So these are pre-configured to do those types of operations. And then at the end, there are also some sample links that are provided, which just shows how attribute supports from one transformations are propagated forward. So here, the all link will take all the fields forward. The strings will take only the string fields forward. The patterns will propagate just the fields which have a particular name pattern and so forth. So these are again examples that you can bring in and use within your template. So with that, let's take a look at some of the types of use cases we will solve, and so I'm going to walk you through an example here. Okay, so I've opened up an empty document, and what I'm going to do is just quickly build an integration template using some of these steps. Okay, so let's start with a very simple example. Let's say I have data that's coming in from files, okay, and I want to be able to trim all the strings, trim all the string data just to remove the spaces. Okay, so let's start with this. So here I'm going to use the source is a file system, so I'm going to use this particular step, and I'm just going to basically copy it over into my document. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is that I want to be able to do the string conversions and remove all the spaces. So here there is a particular predefined stub here that does that. So let me just copy this over. All right, and the results I want to be able to just write to a target. So I'm just going to pick a target from here and bring that in. Okay, so let me ungroup this, and so now I have all the pieces. So let me actually expand this a bit so you can see it better. Okay, so now I have all the building blocks for that particular integration template. So what I'm going to do is just hook them up together so that I have a complete template. So the data comes from a relational table. As you see here, the actual relational table is not predefined. It's something that you would specify at runtime. And then what you would do is trim all the string fields, and then write the information to the target. Okay. So here's a very simple template that addresses that particular use case. So let's take a look at another example, and then we'll walk through end-to-end how we bring that into the cloud. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. So let's say another use case, and I have a picture of that here that I can show you. So another common use case is that is finding differences between two different sources. Okay, so let's say, for example, you're getting either order data or maybe customer data from different sources, and you want to be able to compare them to see what matches and what's different. Okay, and so here's an example where we have customer data coming from two different files, and for the most part they're the same, but then there are some differences. There are some customers that exist only in file 1, and there are some customers that exist only in file 2. And let's say what you want to find out is what are those unique records that are present only in one of these files. And so if that's the integration challenge, let's take a look at how we can solve that problem using integration templates. So here I'm going to need a stub that lets me pick data from two different file systems or two different files. So I'm going to use this one. So this is pre-configured. You can read from two relational tables or files, and it does a join operation on them. So once I do the join, I'll be able to find out what's matching between the two sources and what's also unique for the two different sources. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. And then from there on, what I need is the ability to filter the data, right? So once I find out what the matches are, what I'm really looking for is unique records that are only found in one of those files. Okay, so a filter is the right type of transformation that I want to deploy here. So I'm going to bring in the filter. And then what I need is I need to be able to take the result set, which will just contain the differences between the files, and then write it to a target. So let's go and bring in a target. And I'm going to use this particular stub here. What it does is it not only writes to target, but uses an expression so that you can confirm the input attributes to the target structure. So let's bring that in. Okay. So now I have all the pieces that I need. So let's just go ahead and hook them up. Okay, so now I have an integration template, which is a generic template that will compare any two different relational tables or files and then find the differences between them. Okay, so once I have this, I'm going to, there are a few things to point out is that there are some aspects of this template that are parameterized. There's a join condition that's parameterized. The filter condition has a filter that's parameterized. So these are specified, these values are specified later on. Okay, now I'm going to export this template as an XML file. And now I'm ready to go into Informatica Cloud to bring in that particular template. So I'm logged into Informatica Cloud. So I'm going to go into the configuration integration template section. So this is where I would bring in that particular integration template and then configure a wizard around it so a user can specify the different parameter values for the template. Okay, so I'm going to, so let's give it a name. So let's just say call this file diffs. And I'm going to pick that particular XML file that I exported from Visio. And when I bring that in here, what this allows me is to actually configure the different visual properties of the wizard for this template. Okay, so here I'm going to give a label name for the different sources. So let's say this is source 1. That's the first source that has the data. And then source 2 will contain the other source that I want to compare to. And then target is going to contain the results. So this is the, let's just call it the diff results. And now I can also order the actual, the location of these different parameters within the wizard. So I'm going to move a few things around so that it's more logical. And so this is going to be my join condition for the two files. This is going to do the actual filtering to find only the unique records that are present in one of the files. And then finally the field map will do the actual mapping to the target result file. Okay, so once this is set up, I'll save it. Now I'm actually, now the template has been configured. Now I can use it. So to use the template and to build a task for the template, we'll go through this menu. So here, as you see here, these are the different applications Informatica Cloud provides for data synchronization, data replication, etc. And under the custom integration section is where you would go and build tasks for the different integration templates that you have defined. Okay. So here, let's go through creating a new task. And I'm going to give this task a name. So let's say customer. So let's say in this case, I'm going to pick customer files, okay, and do some diffs between them. So I'm going to call this customer diffs just to make it unique. I'll give it, put a suffix there. I'll pick my secure agent. And what I'm going to do is pick the particular template that I just uploaded. Okay, so one way is to just search for the template. So I can just do a string search, or what I can do is just look for the last modified time, and I should be able to find. So this is the template that we just uploaded, the file dev template. I'm going to pick that up. And now let's define the sources that we need, the targets, etc. Okay, so for source one, I'm going to pick a customer file, and that's going to be one of my input files. And the file that I want to compare to is another file which has very similar records, but there are a few records that are changed or that are unique. So if you look at the two files, they look very alike. So there are a lot of common records, but then there are some records only present in one of them. Okay. And for the targets, I'm going to pick a result file which is going to have only the differences. Since I ran this earlier, you can see that there are some results already showing in this file. So same thing here. I've picked the sources and targets, and for the other parameters, what you will see is that with the three parameters that were exposed in the template, are the values for those will be specified here through this interface. So we have the join condition, and here I've defined the join condition to be customer ID equals the customer ID 1. So these are the two customer IDs from the two different files. So this is the condition that will be used by the joiner transformation to join the data sets together. And then the filter, which I've here, what this does is it's basically checking to make sure that we'll pick only those results where the customers either present only in file 1 or present only in file 2. Okay, so the condition will pick only those particular records, because that's what we are interested in for this particular template. Okay. All right. And then finally, this is a step where we do the mapping of the source fields to the target field. So the target file has the ID and name for the unique records from file 1 and the ID and name for the unique records from file 2. Okay. So what we're just doing is just capturing only the customer IDs from both the files, and then just the names alone. So in this case, we got the first name and the last name concatenated together, because you have access to all the other different transformation functions that are provided within this dialog. So you have all the rich character functions, conversion functions, date functions, and so forth that you can apply as well. So once I've done this, I can save and run. And what this is going to do is apply all the settings that you've done in this task, and use that particular template and run that integration. So here we are picking the two files, doing the comparisons, and writing the results into the target file. So while it's running, maybe we can look at some other examples that have here as well. Here's another interesting integration template. What it does is, again, using the same method, but in this case, what it does is it does a string replacement. So remember, we walked through a template which did the string removing or trimming the spaces from string. So it's a similar template here, but what this does is actually looks for certain string patterns within the data and makes conversions. So let's say you want to be able to convert certain product names and so forth, and you can use this particular pattern to do so. Okay. And there are other examples like routing opportunities, etc. So this uses the router transformation to be able to route data, based on different conditions. Customer pivot is leverages a pivoting template to be able to pivot data from rows to columns and so forth. Okay. Let me go back to so here you see a template that does a string conversion. So here A, B, C, C, D, E is all converted to Y by Ys. So if you look at the actual parameters, what this does is that it takes input as what fields are to be converted and what the replacement string values are, and it does the actual conversions. So this is another example, a type of again, there's a lot of flexibility in types of problems that you want to solve using integration templates. So you can really build the right types of templates that you need and deploy them through the cloud and leverage them. So here are the parameters for this particular template where I specify the fields to be able to search. So in this case, it's the description fields within a particular source system. This is the search string, and then the replace string, and then whether you want to do case-sensitive comparisons or not for the actual searches and the replacements. Okay, since let's go see the actual results from the original execution. As you see here, the results are shown, and you can see that there are some names that appear only in file 1, and the others that appear only in file 2. So this has brought the results back. Okay, that concludes the demo.
What you just saw was Naresh Govindaraj giving us an overview of how to use some template stubs so that you don't have to use every single widget within the template from scratch, and B, how to use those template stubs to build your template, and then C, how to import them into Informatica Cloud and use the various configuration parameters to configure them into a custom integration task. So let's look at some of the Tech Tuesday tips for success with regards to building your own templates from scratch. So as a first step, please go on to Informatica Marketplace, and there's several examples of out-of-the-box integration templates. So download them and import them into your Informatica Cloud organization and try and run them as a custom integration task so that you get a view of what the end user feels when they are running that sort of a template. Secondly, do take a look at the template stubs to extract best practices with regards to building your own template. I will be having these template stubs in the Informatica Marketplace within the next week or so, and once they're made available, I will go ahead and post a notice to the Informatica communities so that you can go ahead and download them. And when you're ready to actually start building your own template, start experimenting with a multiple source template first. And once you get the hang of that, then go ahead and embark on some of the more complex transformations and more complex advanced integration use cases. So with that, we are now going to go into the Q&A part of Tech Tuesdays. And the first question we have, Naresh, is we have a PowerCenter developer, and the question is whether you can bring your existing PowerCenter mapping into Informatica Cloud and use it as a template.
Yes, you can, Ashwin. So that's a good question because a lot of our customers are PowerCenter customers, and they have mappings that they've built over several years. So what we do allow you is to export your mapping from PowerCenter and import them into Visio, and you can templatize and parameterize those mappings and then bring them into the cloud and use them. Okay, so that's something that we certainly support today.
Okay. The second question is whether any of these Informatica Cloud templates support PowerCenter mapplets.
Okay, that's another good question. So PowerCenter mapplets are very popular in the PowerCenter world. So mapplets abstract certain logic away, and it allows you to build these reusable entities within PowerCenter that can be reused across mapping. So you can bring in mapplets as well as mappings into cloud through Visio and leverage them in this environment.
Okay, thanks for that, Naresh. Since we are a little bit over time, I'm just going to take one more question. This question is from someone who is basically using Ruby on Rails to develop certain applications and would like to know how they can make use of templates.
Okay, that's an interesting question. It's like, what does templates mean for developers out there, like the Java developers, Ruby developers, Force developers, and so forth? One thing that we didn't cover in the demo today, but what we have is a REST API layer for Informatica Cloud. And using the REST APIs, any programmer using any language can run jobs, can configure jobs, and monitor them, etc., just using your application. So, and one interesting aspect of that is that the templates that we just even built today, we introduced the notion of parameters like the join condition, the filter condition, and so forth. So all of these values can be actually set through a REST API as well. So you as a programmer, whether you're leveraging Ruby and other languages, you can just use REST and to be able to configure these templates, create tasks, and then run them dynamically to address your use case.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Naresh. Since we are a little bit over time, just want to wrap up very quickly. So some of the next steps for you after the session is please go ahead and download the Cloud Template Designer. And here's a URL. It's on the communities. Take a look at some of the templates in Informatica Marketplace. So go ahead to the Informatica Cloud Mall and then click on the Templates tab and take a look at some of the templates already up there. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a session with Brian Plaster of the Cloud Labs team with regards to with regards to SOAP web services. So for next Tech Tuesdays, we're actually going to talk about REST web services, and we're going to have Prem Somkumar from the Cloud Labs team talk about how to integrate with a REST web service. Thank you all for attending this session of Tech Tuesdays. See you again, same place, same time next week.